I can't help but notice, and this isn't a brand new observation, but I think is a fair one, that many of the people who we've allowed to come and live in Europe and the West in general don't have very European arguments and attitudes towards the way that people should live. This, for example, is I was playing in the background with this sound.
About kissing, showing your useless character. If your parents were...
You can tell that's an African chap.
Go home.
Yeah, who...
If you don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, he sees a pair of lesbians on the train in Germany or something, and it's just like, okay, so...
It's a German tradition, actually.
But, okay, whatever you think about it, like...
No, I'm being serious. Like, Germans being gay is one of their traditions.
Yeah, sure, but, like... Becoming, like, an insane freak about it, and then start racially abusing them and stuff like that, it's like, okay, look, you just ought not be here, right?
You're in the wrong country, sir.
Yeah. But if this was your daughter or something, would you be happy with this? Sorry, I don't want an African man racially abusing my daughter on the train. I don't want that guy wandering around in my civilization to racially abuse women in the civilization. Like, women, are you not bothered by this? Are you not bothered by this? Like, this surely is a massive, like...
I hate to break it to you, but the likelihood is that those two lesbian young Berlin girls are still going to vote for parties that
undoubtedly
will bring these people in en masse.
Yeah, but it's just it's literally mad that we're bringing in these kinds of people, and we're like, okay, so now everything will be fine. It's like, well, actually, everything's been awful for quite a long time. And I'm going to go through some of just the most shocking examples that I've been just saving in a doc just for the past couple of months, where it's just like, no, this is just... These events should never happen, right? They never happened before this open borders experiment was inflicted upon us. They shouldn't be happening. And the people who have these opinions, well, they just shouldn't be here, right? So this particular one was just awful, right? So, again, a foreign man decides to start slapping a baby in the face in Barcelona, right? Now, I've got a 2-year-old girl. If that had happened, I would have gone ballistic. They would have had to have pulled me off of him with a bloody, like some sort of fucking industrial machinery. If someone had slapped one of my daughter, I was just
a tiny baby,
yeah,
like a 1-year-old or whatever.
I would have been choking him out.
Yeah, it'd be like, well, I might die today now because it's a fight to the death.
One of us is dying today,
yeah.
And I'm going to make sure it's you. It's like this. This just infuriates me. I'm just. I mean, just makes me angry seeing it, right? And of course, this is not the only thing that makes me insanely angry. But it's one of those things where it's just like, right, look, think of what's going through his head, right? What and you sat there going, well, I don't know exactly. You don't know. You don't know what it takes, what line of logic he's following to the point where he's like, yeah, now I'm going to slap a baby just in the middle of the street in the face, right? That is, again, it's
quite hard as well.
Yeah, really hard. It's an insufferable thing to watch and it's insufferable to watch like the kind of limp response from the people around. No, pummel him into the ground, man. Make him realize that he cannot do this. Like, this is unreal, right? But this is, again, a mother walking around with a baby. Like, Syrian guy or whoever he was just starts attacking him. It's like we are in a new world now, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. It just right. So recently, in October, a man was arrested for acid attacking a 14-year-old in London, 35 years old, no name given. I searched and I searched and I searched, and I cannot find his name anywhere. Well, that's enough for me. I'm going to guess that this wasn't John Smith of, Penny Down Lane or something. No, this is going to be someone with a very incomprehensible foreign name who decided to acid attack kids. And it's, okay, but again, it's a 14-year-old girl. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Well, why would anyone throw acid in a woman's face? To disfigure her, right? The acid attacks are generally from men against women.
Yeah, nearly always, yeah.
And it's because they're trying to scar the woman's face so she is no longer beautiful, because it's understood that that's the sort of, primary attribute of a young woman, right?
It's usually that they've been rejected by her, and it's, if I can't have you, then no one will.
Yes, exactly.
Like, what kind of insanity is that?
And you might be like, okay, well, that's a one-off. Is it a one-off, though?
Well, what you're describing there is what we used to consider to be like psychopathic serial killer
Yes.
behaviour. It's the sort of thing that you would only hear about being in, Whitechapel, where men, serial killing psychopaths who've been rejected by women have decided to take it out on them.
Yes.
But apparently this is just part and parcel of multicultural Britain now.
Yeah, it's just completely normal, and I don't know how women can stand it. Because
So one quick thing about the
Yeah.
acid attack thing is, of course, before we had mass open borders experiment, acid attacks was almost
we never heard.
ever, ever happen. It's just not in our past, really.
No.
It just wouldn't happen.
I've never heard of it.
Right. But if you remember, there was one time, and it's a subcontinent thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's mainly a Southeast Asian thing. In fact, I think
And Middle Eastern as well.
I think Bangladeshis are one of the worst for it. I might be wrong about that, but anyway, there was one example a few years back, if you remember, maybe 5 years ago or more, where a white dude did go into a nightclub, and he must have had a big syringe or a pipette or something, and he sprayed like mental thing that happened, and he sprayed like a load of people with it, sort of indiscriminately, and a few people were hospitalised. It wasn't like just one person. It wasn't an attack on one person.
I don't remember.
And he sprayed a whole bunch of people with it. Yeah. And the media, the mainstream media, you kept banging on that for ages and ages and ages to try and make the point that, well, lying by omission, that it's just a crime, it's just a type of violent crime that happens. And look, here's a white dude doing it. Yeah. It's like, it's not white dudes doing it.
Well, this is the same thing with the
hardly ever. Yeah, you got that one example, and there'll be one or two other example now because
it's like the thing with the incest.
It's not a white dude thing.
Well, they literally, the Daily Mail, like, oh yeah, they're going to ban cousin marriages, and they put a pair of Appalachian hillbillies.
Of course they did.
Oh yeah, they're the problem. You've got too many
The
Appalachian hillbillies.
the far right Daily Mail did that.
Yeah. It's crazy. But anyway, so just to get back on this, right? Is this the guy you're talking?
Well, there you go. I don't know. Is it?
Right. So Arthur Collins, we got Arthur Collins there.
Hey, look, it's the Standard.
Yeah,
that one from my last.
Yeah, that is the thing.
That is the guy, right? Okay, well there we go.
And it's that one from my last segment that told us that you were racist far right if you didn't want the government tampering with the food supply.
Yeah. Well, it turns out that in 2019, London was the acid attack capital of the West. There were 752 acid attacks in London. 700.
All by men called things like Arthur Collins, I assume.
That's more than 2 a day.
And from the 1990s up from 0.
Yeah, up from 0 a year. But don't worry, that had actually gone down to only 107 in 2023, according to the BBC.
Oh.
But that was a rise up from 2022 and 2021. So, I mean, it's from 2021 to 2022. So I guess the lockdowns, knocked that down by about a quarter fewer acid attacks.
Again, though, this stuff is recorded, so who knows what the actual number is?
It's just mental.
Because, of course, ethnic enclaves may be less inclined to report crimes to the police.
Yeah, true. But I mean, I think with an acid attack, you've got to go to a hospital. So
no, I suppose so. Yeah.
There are probably lots of crimes that do go unreported, but it's probably not one of them. But even then, let's just take it. Okay, so 107 acid attacks in London in a year. Like, that's insane. Like, if you're a woman, do you feel safe living in a place like this? Like, this is horrific. This is something again, it never happened. We get the far right the far left open borders experiment.
But think of the food.
Yeah, exactly. Think of the restaurants, man.
And remember, to reduce any of this is impossible, according to
it can never be
impossible.
It's just
where we are. It's just where we are.
Yeah. So again, I just can't take it. This is just unbelievably evil. You may remember from last year the terrorist attacker in France who just ran around stabbing babies in a park. Apparently, it wasn't terrorist.
Oh,
didn't have any terrorist motive. Oh, well, that's okay then.
I thought he was a Christian.
Yeah, well, apparently, Christian convert from Syria. Syrian national. He sought refugee status in Sweden, which was granted, and for some reason, he's went on the stabbing spree, because who knows why. But he was finally shot by the police, thank God. But he was not known to any of the intelligence services and did not have a psychiatric background.
That's just a failure
So
the entire process then?
Well, it's just okay. So, like, if this guy wasn't someone who was involved in jihadi networks, didn't have a psychiatric history of mental illness, and yet he can still go on to just start stabbing women and children in a park, you don't understand them. Right? You don't know what he's thinking. You can't possibly conceive. You don't have a theory of mind as to why this guy would just suddenly go, you know what, I've been accepted for refugee status in Sweden. I'm going to start stabbing children in France. Like, you don't know why.
Yeah, what it should tell you, obviously they wanted to make it sound like, well, this is just a freak incident. If you actually take note of what's being said here, if you read through the lines, what you should take from this is that anybody you don't know personally of foreign background, you should automatically be alert around them, suspicious around them, because apparently
You don't know.
some rando who wasn't even a terrorist, who wasn't involved in any of these networks, can just snap one day and do this. Okay, well, I will just keep my guard up and keep my distance at all times.
But that's exactly the point, isn't it? Like, the introduction of just an unbelievable number of people from not just one different place, but all kinds of different places, has acted like kind of, oil and water, or water and oil, where it, like, the natural sort of feeling of security that we used to have. I mean, you might not even remember it, but I mean, I suppose you probably do coming from a small place.
Very, very long ago, the town that I'm from used to be quite nice and is now just barbershops, empty shops, and rubble.
Well, back when me and Bo were young, you just didn't think about any of this kind of stuff. Like, you'd go out on a Friday night, get blind drunk, and then just stagger like a mile home, and nothing would ever happen. Like, nothing would happen to anyone. Right? Am I wrong? It was just like women would go out, get blind drunk, go home, everything would be fine. Like, you'd never heard of a person who was in any kind of trouble, and now this sort of stuff happens really. I mean, let's take an example of this, actually, right? So you've got the mum of 3 who was, again, drunk, like, fell asleep on a park bench and then got orally raped to death by someone, Mohammed Idau, how you pronounce it, who decided, oh, look, there's a vulnerable woman there, I'm going to rape her. He wasn't trying to kill her, he was just trying to rape her. And
She's a drunken kaffir, though.
yeah,
So
yeah, that's literally what.
so fair game.
Well, that's probably what was true about. That's probably what was in his mind. And so, women, you just have to understand, you're just not safe to go out like this anymore, right? It used to be that you were safe to do this. You're just not safe to do this anymore, right? You've got to understand, your world has changed. Things are more dangerous. There are people who have really quite crazy ideas about the way that the world ought to work.
Thanks, Blair. Thanks, Brown. Thanks,
Yeah.
Cameron.
You've
Thanks,
rubbed our faces
Boris.
in diversity. Don't get me wrong. We totally
Yeah.
accept that's.
Well and truly rubbed in.
Yeah, we're really getting it. And this mother of 3, I think it was, just raped to death on a bench by some foreigner, and it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do to him? Are we going to put him in jail? Oh, is that it?
Probably
Okay.
just give him a suspended sentence.
I'm sure that he won't get a suspended sentence.
One of the most insidious things outside of the just pure horror of a story like this as well
Yeah.
is the way that the media presents this is not that they're trying to prevent the division of society, is that they try and divide society down the lines that don't make any sense in this. Most of the time when I see people talking about these sorts of events, it's not that, oh, this is the fault of loads of foreigners coming into this country who hate us and want to hurt us. No, it gets turned into men v women. This is just men doing this. I've said this before, but on my Instagram, a guy that I know, I saw him share a story a while back of all of these headlines of women being horribly raped and assaulted, saying, do you feel safe, women, trying to make it sound like men in general should be kept on guard so that they don't hurt women. But every single headline, literally every single one of them, was a report from India. And I just shared this out and said, do you notice what he didn't about this? Because he's taking the wrong message. It's not that men in general, is that particular kinds of men seem to be predisposed to abusing women.
Weirdly, non-Western men hold non-Western views on women. And a lot of the, you look at this, right? She was, out drinking, she was dancing outside of a shop with other people. This all assumes a background of the men in my country are civilized Western men, And if I get a bit too drunk, they're not just going to take advantage of me and rape me in the street, right? That's all assumed. And that was a perfectly reasonable assumption 20 years ago. It's not a reasonable assumption now, right? It's not a reasonable assumption to assume that you are just safe to go out drinking and nothing bad will happen to you. I mean, and I'm not saying that nothing bad ever happened before, but like, holy crap, man. Like, this is just, again, these just... Sorry, go on.
The examples are endless, aren't they?
Yeah.
Little kids getting beheaded in playgrounds or whatever.
Yeah, I'm taking the ones that have just crossed my timeline, and I've just been like, no, I just can't take it. I can't stand the fact that this is our country. You know?
Remember there was a female peer, I think she was a Lib Dem peer, but I might be wrong, where she said that there should be a curfew. She stood up in the House of Lords, a curfew for all men. Again, not any particular type of men, just all men. Yeah. There should be a curfew for. Of course, that was never going to get anywhere. But the fact that she had the temerity to stand up and say that.
It's just men, bro. Anyway, so Germany has recently begun to acknowledge that actually, yes, it appears that non-Western men hold non-Western attitudes towards women. And this informs their behaviour. Shock, surprise, you're going to be really amazed to hear this, but the critic reporting is just crazy. In 2023, according to the official statistics, Germany had 5.5% more crimes than the previous year. The number of suspects rose 7.3%. 41% were foreigners. The foreign proportion of Germany is probably about 20%, I think it is. So, massive overrepresentation. And in certain kinds of crime, overrepresented even again. Right. So there were 214,000 violent crimes, a 15-year high, an increase of 8.6%. Robberies were up, homicides were up, sex crimes were 2.4% of all crimes. The crimes involving knives had nearly tripled, and various like internal analyses found like that 80% of pickpockets were foreigners, 47% of shoplifters, 47% of burglaries, 37% of suspects in sex crimes. So again, for people who are like 15-20% of the population to be literally twice as represented in all of these crimes. Okay, well that suggests that there's a problem there, doesn't it?
Well, to a neoliberal mind, you read this and go, that's a lot of graphs going up. That's a lot of lines going up. Yeah. It's good news to me.
But yeah, between 2015 and 2023, there were 7,000 sexual assaults that ranged from groping to gang rape. And despite being 2.5% of the population, asylum seekers were 13.1% of all the sexual assault suspects in 2021. In 2023, there were 761 gang rapes in Germany, which is 2 per day, and 47% of those suspects were foreigners. It's like, okay, that's just crazy, right? This is just crazy. This is not just me. I mean, the fact that there's 2 gang rapes a day in Germany is crazy. But like, anyway, so why are they doing it? Well, let's agree with the experts here, because they tell us that an important factor of this is the willingness of the victims to report the crimes.
What? Excuse me?
Professor Jörg Kinzig, the director of the Institute of Criminology in Tübingen, Germany, tells DPA that assault and rape victims are more willing to report these crimes to police if the perpetrator is perceived as foreign. So German women are racist. That's why.
So this is just a form of victim blaming.
Yes.
Yeah.
And literally calling the victims a bunch of racists.
The worst explanation I saw was in Germany again. It was after, I remember reporting on the story that it was some 15-year-old girl who'd been raped, gang raped, and the lawyer defending had some sociologists come forward and say, well, you don't understand the rage that comes with displacement of a foreign culture.
Hang on a second.
Oh, no.
Because psychologists also stress that refugees and migrants can act out violent impulses when they feel repeatedly rejected by the system.
Right, when I'm in charge, yeah, right, these people are going to prison and they're not coming back out again.
Yeah.
Because you are facilitating the industrial rape of European girls across the entire continent on a mass scale. You are complicit, you are excusing it, you're disgusting, your soul is dead.
Let me carry on. With a growing number of migrants being rejected asylum system status and returned to their homes, their crimes may largely be born out of frustration rather than actual sexual impulses channeled into assault and rape.
Okay, so
I'm furious with the asylum system, therefore I'm going to rape this woman to death on a park bench when she's passed out.
again, to translate into rational language, and I'm not saying that this is how you should view people. I'm saying that this is what they're suggesting is that these people are almost animalistic in that they will, when rejected, just act out violent sex attacks on people. That's what you're saying there is not anything that a rational mind would do. You're saying that these people are animalistic.
That's worse. There's no beast that would act like that.
Yeah.
I don't think a lion or a tiger or an orang or anything would ever be like that, would ever act like that. It's more bestial than the beasts.
Yeah. And also, it's also saying, well, they're not really responsible for the things they're doing.
Yeah.
Actually, the system's responsible. We're responsible for them doing these things. It's like, nope, I don't agree with that. I think they're completely responsible, and we should treat them as such. But anyway, so one of the few people talking about this has been Giorgia Meloni, who's like, look, I'll be called a racist, but foreigners are overrepresented in violent crimes against women. Totally true. And of course, the same in Germany is true in Italy. 43% of the sexual assaults in Italy were committed by 8% of the population. I mean, if you're a woman, again, surely you're looking at those numbers and going, right, okay, do I fancy my chances? Am I happy living in a place that is just full of sexual predators? Like, are you happy with that? Because this is kind of what this indicates. And the mayor of Milan, who's a left-winger, had to be like, yeah, I'm not going to say this is a safe city or anything, because, of course, their stats showed disproportionate levels of migrant crime across the board. Right, across the board, 65% of offences in the city are committed by foreign nationals, representing 20% of all the residents. Just this is mental. Like, it's not just. I mean, in any, all of these crimes are a problem, but I do think the sort of sexual assaults and rapes and all that are a much more significant problem for women, you would think. And so, why any woman would be like, yeah, I'm going to vote for the left-wing party who's going to bring in more of this, is beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me. I think it's crazy.
The open borders experiment, which has been foisted upon us, is the worst crime in history.
It's one of them.
That's happened to the Western civilization.
There are definitely people who are going to contest that from things that have
happened against Western civilization.
I'm gonna sit on the fence on that one. I think there have been terrible crimes throughout history, but it's definitely the worst one that we're living through. I mean, this is mad.
Well, to completely change our demographic.
Yeah, I mean,
what's worse than what crime is worse than that?
Well, someone will say like the Holocaust or something, right? So, but I don't want to get into I hate getting into the sort of this was worse.
Chalk and cheese, yeah, they're different things, aren't they? They're different things.
Sure, but like I hate getting into this sort of relativistic. Well, my number is bigger than your number. It's like, look, I don't care. This isn't because that ends up kind of justifying one against the other. It's like, no, whatever you're going to compare it to, they're both bad, and I don't want this happening. Right? I just don't want this happening at all, ever, for any reason. And so, I don't care if there was something that is worse or whatever it is. Like, no, just this has to stop. Hi, folks. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that and you'd like more from us, go and watch Lads Hour. We broadcast it live every Friday afternoon, and basically it's us being a bit more relaxed and not really taking things too seriously, which is why they were doing a costumed breakdown of Pirates of the Caribbean, which actually has some more right-wing themes in it than you might expect. And once you've done that, go over and follow us on X at @LotusEaters_com.